Welcome to the Winners and Losers Show. Hello, everybody. It's me, Hank. I'm the host of the show. We're having another good one here, episode 174. Thanks for tuning in. Like and subscribe. Patreon.com/winners and losers to support and offer up a little financial help if you can, or just to see the list of stuff that I post. I'm doing a bad job. I'm not good at the posting stuff and the making sure that I'm fulfilling my end of the obligation, the contract, to provide timely, entertaining content for a reasonable price. I'm bad at this. I shouldn't be podcasting. I think this was a terrible choice, this entire endeavor of mine in overall to do entertainment career. That impulse back in 2009 when I decided to actually jump into the comedy waters. I took an improv class and I started doing stand-up comedy and in Chicago and all that. I just keep thinking, I should have just gotten into photography, something like that. I could have done that. I can hold still. So yeah, sorry. Didn't mean to start out such a self-flagellation. I wasn't planning on that at all. I was slow to get this episode out. I fucked up. I've been really busy and distracted, working on this other thing, and just kind of was surfing that wave. And but also that kind of means burning all my energy, and I just wasn't able to pull the trigger on the podcast. So my capacities right now are a little bit strained in that sense for some stuff that I'm not making public or not talking about publicly. But yeah, things are just a little bit intense for me right now. And when that happens, I can't come up with extra chits. Why is that the word in my head? Points, little tokens, some way of spending, some false currency, some localized currency, I should say, for accessing the ability to do more things and to put out stuff. So I'm apologizing to my Patreon supporters for not getting out as many episodes as I should be cranking out. I really should be doing more. I mean, I probably could. I've been depressed. I've been feeling like shit lately. My brain is putting out some weather systems that are very familiar, but yeah. So it's that ever ongoing battle of like, well, just go walk, go work out, go do more of the good stuff, go feed the good wolf. Instead, I've been eating Chinese food and burritos, and I've been getting in my head about my beard. That's just a quick therapy spill for you right now. Yeah, it's really freaking me out. I got another spot that's starting to lose up here. I really got to get my shit together with the paperwork. I think I have access to Medi-Cal, like the free healthcare thing for people who are super poor in California. So I do actually, there might be some doctor's assistance I could find for this, whatever might be causing it. It could be environmental pollution. It was a fate written in the scrolls when I was a baby that some kind of alopecia was going to assert itself starting in my early 40s. But I don't know. I did a lot of cooking. I did a lot of PFAs, forever chemicals, a lot of nonstick cookware. I've cooked a lot. I haven't been able to afford to eat out. I mean, I certainly do, but like some people only eat food from restaurants. I'm not that that's my aspiration, but I love to cook. So I've switched to using stainless steel pans. Maybe the hair will grow back now, but I don't know if that's what's causing. I used to microwave a lot of plastic in like containers to reheat. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's lead pollution. Maybe it's some kind of damn, there was one other one that I was thinking about, but it could be stress. It probably is related to stress. The body functions. I do know that hair can start to give up during times of very extreme stress, but I don't know. I have no idea. It's scary. It's fucking with my head. I don't like my face without a beard. It gets me into my whole body head space about my body image problems, where I think I'm ugly because I'm fat. Not that that's correct, but I just have it in there, And so yeah, I start thinking about my double chin, and I just get all up in my head. And I'm pursuing a career putting my face on camera. That's partially why it's frustrating. It's people stare at me when I'm out in the world. I catch people's eyes going, that you can tell when someone dials in on you when they're at. So yeah, yeah. That's been happening. Mostly I try not to think about it, but it's on my face, and your face is such a thing. Our brains are so evolved. We see faces in stuff that's not faces. If there's two holes and a nose, if there's two holes, look, I'm trying to make a face hole. I'm trying to trick your brain into seeing a face in my fingers. Our brains see eyeballs and nose and mouth and go face, right? There's fucking whole Reddit communities dedicated to looking for faces that aren't human faces in metal objects and also other materials. So our identity, the way our body works, we see ourselves in the mirror, the way we process our existence, our everything about our whole thing. I think a lot of that orchestra, a lot of that signaling is through the way you see and perceive your face, just naturally. It's just a deeply rooted, inherently thing. It it's probably true for other animal species as well, because our faces are how we communicate so much. Whatever. I'll be fine. We'll get over it. Maybe it'll grow back. Maybe things will turn around a little bit, then it'll grow back. I don't know. I fucking hate shaving. I hate shaving. One of the reasons I like having a beard, I didn't mind trimming the bottom, although I probably could have styled it a little bit more, thoughtfully or whatever over the years. But now I'm going to have to start shaving. I got to lose weight. Honestly, the solution to all this, and then I'll move on to the stories. We're talking pulsars. We're talking a little bit of union stuff, some submarine thing. I've been in a pressure rabbit hole this last week. You're probably already tired of hearing people talk about that. And a little Supreme Court. I don't have a ton to get into that because I find the details of it not nauseating because they are nauseating, which they are, but just mostly my head just kind of shuts down when I try to like read the cases and stuff. That's not the level I'm going to offer you some analysis. But the final thing before moving on that I just said I was going to say, and I just totally forgot, was it's fitness. It's health, self-care, or whatever the fuck. There's a leftist critique of the self-care world and the self-care industry and the self-help stuff. There's a lot of that. I'm not saying I'm just going to become one, but like I need to just like work out and do better and start because during the time periods of my life where I have leaned into exercise, I always feel better. Like I have stuff available to me to use, but what I really need is like a big turnaround. I need like one of those like, wow, look at him now. He goes outside on purpose now. He's amazing. Inspirational. His bicep has a vein. I want a vein. I want a vein back. I remember when it was a little period in my 20s when I was at my lowest weight. By low, I don't mean like I was under 200 for like a couple weeks. I'm pretty happy at around 205-ish, 200. 200 is a pretty good weight for me. So yeah, I'm a fairly lean 200. I could probably actually get a little bit less than I still had some chub on me at that time. But I was feeling good and I was working out. I remember just having this bicep vein and being like, look at my bicep vein. And then the bus driver would be like, all right, free ride for you, bicep vein. And I'd be like, hell yeah. This is what it feels like being Spider-Man. So aspirations, a little bit's vain. A lot of it is, there's just deeper levels too. I just want to feel life in that way. And date again. How am I supposed to date with a face like this? Who's going to see this and be like, oh, baby, can't wait to get a hold of that guy. Got that. Does rabies cause your hair to fall out? I don't know. Is that a thing? But I wouldn't fault anybody for being really turned off by this, obviously. So shaving it, I think I crossed the line where I should shave it off like years ago, or a year or two ago. But I don't know. And I want to be another final thing here. I want to be nonplussed. I don't even think I'm using that word right. It's one of those words I don't think. But I want to be unbothered. I wish I could model that. Look at how confident he is. It actually makes him more attractive how little he cares. That ain't me. That ain't me, okay, motherfucker? No. It hurts. It's pain. It's getting under my chin now. I've got a strap here that's about to, open up, and then it's like, yeah, it's just it's a little devastating. I could use a hug. Maybe that's where we summarize this. Like all men, like all big, strong, masculine men. It's nice to get a hug sometimes, isn't it, boys? Isn't it, fellas? You don't have to wake up at 3:30 and go working out at the Bible gym. Just get a hug sometimes. We all need a hug. Everybody needs a hug. Human touch is one of those things that we don't that we suffer without. in the same way that we suffer from the presence of pollution. I need to come up with a term for this because I have this concept of about like we are missing critical emotional nutrients like social factors. Having backup, meaning like having a stable community that you know will be there, that gives you leverage, that increases your ability to take risks and to accomplish things. Just knowing you have that's the whole point of atomizing you through capitalism, is to make you so that you don't actually have that support to the degree that you can actually affect those who are in charge. You might have enough backup at home where you're sharing rent, or you're someone else is doing some of the housework, or you do, and you should contribute too as well. But like, you know, the less sustained backup, the less sustained community you have, the better off it is for the bosses of the world. There's an absence of things. So there's an inverse, I don't know if it's inverse pollution, but human touch. I think a major reason for, it's like an accelerant for all this devastating despair that is driving, you know, addiction and radicalization. It makes you more susceptible. It just makes you less likely to put up or get pulled into different rabbit holes. Like I said, radicalization, or, you know, the incel types and all this kind of agonizing loneliness that is a feature of modern life. The separation we feel because we communicate through cameras and through our fucking phones and all these other things. We work so much. We don't have time for, you know, communal and community behavior, like hanging out and just chilling. I mean, sure, yeah, sometimes people can accomplish that, but that's why they take away your vacation time, because they want you to make money for them working, but they also don't want you to ever get fully rested up so that you could start a union or push back, or, you know, develop a better society on your own behalf and that of your neighbors. But touch, human touch, is a thing that you need, that we evolved with. We probably were very closely wedded to our families, to the groupings that we were born into. And we probably slept, and we probably had a lot more sex, and we probably had a lot more physical touch, and there were probably more rituals and more like healthy rituals. And there were probably a lot more, the percentage of time in your life, the sliver of that, whatever it is, where you're actually in contact with another person was, I would bet, was higher in that past. And I'm basing that on the notion that not being touched is harmful for your body over time. I'm not saying that it's literally like, you don't go to the doctor and just say like, all right, I will touch you once. Now you have been touched. Now it is over. But just the warmth and the transmission, the bonding, all the things that happen when there's healthy, you know, human contact. The absence of that functions as a sort of pollutant. So I don't know if calling that inverse pollution makes sense, but there's a whole things missing from the atmosphere in our world that we don't even know to detect. We can't even detect their absence, other than their absence causes these massive problems, but we fill those gaps in imperfectly. So yeah. Thus my dream of finding a coven of very successful wives, a grouping. My dream is to be a house husband for a coven of witches. I'll stay home, do all the cleaning, cooking, make everything good, come to work and eat your pussy on your lunch break, like I always promise. And, you know, we have movie nights and stuff, and, you know, they cook things. I make sure that their cars are fixed up. If a car breaks, we got another car you can use. It's okay. We donate to politicians who support mass transit, you know, stuff that turns us on. So what am I doing? Yeah. So difficult time for me, honestly. I think things are gonna change soon though too. I'm hopeful that there's some stuff in the works that might make things a little more interesting, a little more exciting, and we can kind of dig out of this rut, and you're part of it. I'm sure you're regretting listening to this fucking podcast. Listen to this kind of guy. All right. So, let's see. We're going to jump into here real quick. I haven't watched this yet. A little bit of news here about the, the writers union that's been battling its way around LA. I drive by them sometimes. I honk. I haven't gone down and walked with them. Honestly, I feel like a piece of shit. I really should. I'm all freaked out about my everything. I'm not going to go back down that. But yeah, I don't think I will. I'm just gonna say that, not because I don't want to support it. Everything about that feels incredibly awkward and weird for me. Plus, being outside hurts my eyeballs. Um, not always, but yeah, yeah. What the fuck is I getting at? Oh, but Adam Conover is a guy I dig. I wasn't a watcher of his show Adam Ruins Everything when it was airing, although I have seen quite a few episodes since it all aired. He does a podcast called Factually, and he's been very active in the I think he's on the leadership team or whatever of the WGA. He's a very good communicator. So he seems like he's stepping into that role very well. So here's a video of him speaking to the LA City Council about what's going on. And I still keep threatening myself to make this video where he and Haas, was like the second or third day of the strike, where they were going around doing stuff. Because of what I didn't realize, this is kind of the nature of the video I want to make, is just like, I didn't realize how strategic it is that they actually go like stop shooting and stuff. I thought they were just being noisy outside the office. They're actually like blocking driveway. I was dumb. I didn't realize that. And I figured there might be an interesting way of presenting that information using like animations and graphics. That's why I haven't been able to pull the trigger on making that, because I'm also very busy working on other stuff. So, all right, whatever. God damn it. This cord is so short. Fuck. It's like 2 feet. Why do I have such a short cord? Okay. Just hope I can hear it. I'm going to just click on play. We'll see what Adam says. 1 minute, 22 seconds.
Okay, so you have 1 minute for the item.
Thank you. My name's Adam Conover. I'm a writer. I live in the city of Los Angeles. Los Angeles is a great city because for a century, artists from around the world have flocked here for one reason, because this is the one place an artist can be paid fairly. From Faulkner, from Joan Didion to Jordan Peele, writers, actors, artists of all kind. We all came to Los Angeles because when our work made the studios billions in profit, they gave us a sustainable middle-class life in exchange. We bought houses, we patronized businesses, we powered Los Angeles into a great city, but over the past decade, the companies that employ us have broken that compact. They've gone to war with their own workforce, taking money out of our pockets and giving it instead to Wall Street and the CEOs. And let's be clear, starving and impoverishing the workers who empowered this city is impoverishing Los Angeles itself, and that is why we need the city council to use its power on behalf of those workers and all workers. It's not enough to urge both sides to come together. That's insufficient. We need the city council to stand up on behalf of all workers and against the corporations that are trying to kill this city. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And with that, let's open the roll.
We're going to resume this. There's only 9 seconds to go, but yeah, good for him. CEOs, they love to impoverish their workers because it's so crazy. The fact that we have to submit to like people who don't know what they're like. This David Zaslav guy, who's made his total pay over the last like 10 years is something around $1 billion just in like his compensation. There's been a couple. I don't even. It's more than. But like, what's this fucker getting paid for? Just selling off parts, just representing these Wall Street private equity interests. It's so nuts, especially in all fields, you know, the creative world like this, where people have to, or it's more of a public industry. The people at the top are so incompetent, and they don't have any clue what they could. That's why they're so attracted to AI, because they could just spit out a fart, tell somebody to go type it into the computer, and then make some approval. They get to nod their heads. They get to be these deities over these like little kingdoms. And you know, we need to end the tyranny of bosses altogether, in my opinion. We need leaders. We need organization. I get annoyed when people talk like leftists going to dismiss that need, but we need democratically accountable leadership in these systems and these organizations and worker-led things. And I think the entire concept of work can be itself eradicated as and shifted over into something more akin to service towards your community and towards others and towards yourself and towards your, you know. But how do we get from where we are to that? It's hard, because currently the scumbags at the top, they can bribe the politicians. They can write the rules of how society works. They have all the cops on their hand. They have the concept of ownership upholding all their property, which gives them access to government violence. And so they're able to enforce their will and destroy cities. And politicians would rather only have to carry around one giant bag of money because they've got their billionaire benefactor than have to carry around lots and lots and lots of little bags of money, which is what happens if you have small people. Money doesn't need to be involved either. We could get rid of money. End money. Not in your lifetime or my lifetime, by the way. So patreon.com/winners of lose, by the way. Help me out. Let's see what this guy says.
Close the roll. Tally the votes.
12 ayes.
All right. It's unanimously adopted.
Okay. They adopted it unanimously. When he said close the roll, I just instantly thought about Cinnabon. And I used to make these bread rolls with at home, like homemade cinnamon rolls. Oh, man. If I had that group of wives, we'd do cinnamon roll Sunday. One of them would be into sports, probably. That'd be fine. We'll make some cinnamon rolls for her sports day. That'd be fun. As long as it's not fucking pickleball. So Sarah Nelson, who is, people talk about maybe her as, she's a very charismatic leader of the nurses, or no, sorry, not the nurse, the flight attendants union. And I've heard her give interviews. She's I like her a lot. For president, people say she should be president, and I am one of them. I'm not saying that's not like my 2024 position. I'm not going to write her in. But if she dipped her foot, see, she's such a badass. She doesn't just do a toe; she does a whole foot. If she went into politics, I think she might have she's at least of a prominent launching point right now. You know, who knows? But maybe she doesn't want to stick her face into the wood chipper of politics anyway. She tweeted about Harrison Ford, our favorite. Hey, it's me, Harrison Ford. I was really hot in the 70s and 80s, and now I'm old. Still hot for an old guy, but I mean, you know, all those things. So yeah, she's okay. We're just gonna listen to Harrison Ford be quoted. She actually is just retweeting. I am horrible at this. Now this tweet. And I just wanted to hear this guy's voice.
Would you go on strike if that happens on Friday?
I believe in unions. I believe in labor. I believe in representation. All of those things. If my union votes to go out, I'll go out.
I'm striking in solidarity with the WGA and with the writers as well. And I'm, you know.
Now that's Phoebe Waller-Bridge, star of some show I watched. I don't know. She's it's Fleabag, right? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I dated a girl who's a lot like that Fleabag girl. Yeah, she was. All right.
You know, I'm on the edge of my seat, like hoping that SAG will follow suit and stand up in support of the writers, and just really hope we can get this sorted. Writers are the most important people in this industry. I really believe that.
Would you go on strike?
All right, good. Harrison Ford's down for striking. I like it. He'll fly his Millennium Falcon down. Maybe do a castle run down to the striking. There's a video of him. I'm not going to play it, but David Blaine's in his house. Now, it's not like he's like unwelcome. You know, it's not like it's like, oh my God, I think there might be David Blaine in the attic. But David Blaine does some sort of magic trick, and Harrison Ford is like, get out of my house. Like he just gets kind of, you know, overwhelmed with shock at the power of magic. Something I relate to, being also someone who was attractive in the 80s. That's the terrible. I was a kid in the 80s. I shouldn't have. That's not. Why did I? Okay. So, by the way, Indiana Jones movie just came out. How did it do? How's it doing? Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny whips up $24 million opening day. Not bad. Not bad at all. Are you excited? Leave a comment below. Are you going to see Indiana? Is he on your list? Look at him. He's still holding his whip, wearing his hat, leather jacket. Leather jackets, they don't breathe well. They get warm. I had one for a little while. Yeah. All right. Wearing a tie. I like it. Ooh, we got to, I love these.
Box office, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny whips up $24 million.
All right. I said that part.
Earning $24 million on its opening day from 4,600 theaters. It's a figure that includes $7.2 million in Thursday previews.
Oh.
The release from Disney and Lucasfilm is expected to debut near the bottom of projections with a 3A opening of $60 million or so.
Wow, are they doing intonation now with a 3-day? That's my job, okay? Leave me to it.
It'll be more than enough for the Harrison Ford action-adventure film to land in the top spot on domestic charts, setting itself up to draw crowds through the 4th of July holiday.
That's key. That's key. That's key. 4th of July holiday, big movie weekend, big time, okay? Mama, Let's go see the Harrison Ford flick. Okay, Reggie will go. Then Mama and Reggie go see the flick. Big deal. Then they come home, blow up their uncle in a fireworks accident, and then get drunk. Deal with the aftermath on the July 5th. The hangover day. I fucking hate the 4th. It's just the worst holiday.
It's not exactly the victorious tone setter for one of the most expensive American blockbusters ever made. With a whopping $295 million production budget, Indiana Jones 5 faces quite the trek to theatrical profitability.
Indiana Jones 5. I don't know. I'm trying to think of Fast and Furious jokes. There was one paragraph here I did feel like I did want to mention. This says, the last feather in Indy's cap was Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Cate Blanchett's finest vehicle, by the way. There's a scene where she's in a vehicle and they're shooting Nazis or something, and it's the most green screen looking fucking shot in the history of cinema. How the hell did that movie get made? Was that Dan Aykroyd? Was he behind it? You know, he's autistic just like me. I don't know if it's the same kind. I'm not sure if he's actually publicly out as that, but I think wow, geez, he might be. Yeah, it makes sense. God, this fucking cord is. The reason I'm brought up Dan Aykroyd is because he has a vodka brand that he sells that it comes in a crystal skull. Crystal is actually glass with lead in it. To make crystal, you put lead in the glass. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it means that you shouldn't lick it, or I don't know if it leaches out into the atmosphere or something like that. But it gives it a softer. It's actually a little softer than glass, which allows it to be carved. A lot of chandeliers and things are actually made out of crystal, like fancy goblets and big fancy bowls and shit that you'll see that your grandma, your mom, or your dad will be like, look at this crystal. It's in the cabinet, and we never touch anything in there. It's just shit you'll have to throw away when I die. My mom's got a lot of crap like that. And the lead softens it slightly so that it actually is easier to sort of carve in a sense. So it holds those edges better in the manufacturing. So there's a fun fact for you to tell at your next orgy. So I don't know if Dan Aykroyd's actually selling it in glass-shaped skulls they call crystal skulls, or if they're actually made out of crystal. Guess we'll just have to wonder. So the Crystal Skull movie, yeah, fucking horrible, just a terrible. What kind of? I've eaten my cat's barf. That was better than that. To 100 million. Crystal Skull opened to 100 million over the Memorial Day holiday in 2008 and legged out a 790 million worldwide gross. Damn. The film drew its own middling reception, which may have taken away some of the thrill of the franchise for audiences. It'll be difficult for Dial of Destiny to match the final gross of its predecessor. Dial of Destiny? Doesn't sound appealing to me. Let's move on. Speaking of history, this was going around Twitter a little bit. I'm not sure if you all saw the Twitter shutdown this weekend. If you're on there, Elon Musk, what a fucking dumbass. I can't believe it's so insane that the guy still has people who think he's smart and doing things like limiting tweets. Running a social media site that prevents you from going to it after about 10 or 15 minutes of scrolling. Just a genius. I'm not sure what the reasons are for that. It seems to be back. It seems to be working. And I did feel momentarily liberated from my addiction to Twitter, which would have been nice. I kind of hoped it had really stuck, and then I would have been forced to put it away more. And yeah. So anyway, back in the day, they were it used to be legal to drink booze in your car. Just drive, have a couple of pops, toss the can out the window. They used to litter like crazy in the past. There's a scene in Mad Men. John Hamm. Hi, it's me, John Hamm. And his wife. Hi, it's me, John Hamm's wife. They're having a picnic at the park with a little blanket, bunch of, food and shit. And then there's trash, humans, whatever. Whenever we go anywhere, we always have wrappers and empty bottles. And we're just trash makers. We're fucking dirty, gross humans. We're people. We don't have to be like that, but that's what we do, especially Americans. And he gets up and he just like grabs the blanket and he just gives it a big hard shake, just a whoosh, and all the trash just goes flying into the park. And that's what people did. They used to just, oh yeah, we're done. Just garbage it. My dad tells me stories when we were up in northern Wisconsin about you drive around at night and your headlights, this is like, because they used to go up there in the 50s and 60s, the roads would all be twinkling in like the gutters, you know what I mean? The side of the road. There's a word for that. The ditches along the side of the road. Twinkling with light because all these beer cans were tossed out the windows of the cars and they're reflecting back the headlights. So you're just like, catching little glints off all the cans, all the rubbish. And actually in that area, the garbage dump, now it's like a dumpster thing. You take it to and they just haul it off and stuff. So we're just still piling up gigantic piles of trash. But it used to be just this one spot of the woods where people would just pull in. I don't know if you paid a fee or not, but it was like a winding road that did like a loop through the woods, and you just found a spot and then you just tossed all your shit into the woods. So it's just, you drove through this. I don't think I ever went through it. It was tapering off in the 80s when I was going there, but when I showed up on the scene. But our relationship, I'm sure there's probably a lot of interesting articles or books that look into this, but our relationship with trash and with garbage is improved, I guess. At least now we make slightly more organized piles and just let it all degrade into microplastics so that it ends up in the water and then you end up in your body. Maybe that's why the beard's falling out, or into the oceans. I mean, the pollution, the amount of rubbish that we just produce is just horrifying. But that's not even what this video is about. But this is about people drinking in their cars. And it's a man and a woman are going to speak, and you'll see. There's an interesting thread that I wanted to point out.
Any attempt to restrict drinking and driving here is viewed by some as downright undemocratic.
It's kind of getting communist when a fella can't put in a hard day's work, put in 11, 12 hours a day, and then get in your truck and at least drink 1 or 2 beers.
They're making it laws where you can't drink when you want to. You have to wear a seatbelt when you're driving. And pretty soon we're going to be a communist country.
Any attempt.
Pretty soon we're going to be a communist country. Can't drink when you want to. Can't drink and drive anymore. That's communism. There's 3 mentions. They say communist, the word communist, twice. Of course, let me point out first that this lady's speaking. She's sitting in behind a driver's seat, and there's a baby in the front seat there, who's in some kind of, looks like a baby holder. Wow, if she had to stop really fast, that baby's just gonna smack its nose. It looks like it's a pad, but yeah. So there's a kid in the front seat, and the lady's complaining about how not drinking in the car, and pretty soon we're gonna be communist country. But even the narrator, I'd like to find the context for this story here. But the narrator is like, it seems to be undemocratic. They think communism is the opposite of democracy, when I kind of conceptualize it as maximum democracy, more people having say over their lives, working together as communities, adding democracy to the workplace. That's what they call communist. That's because among the primary reasons they've demonized communism is because communists were the ones who pushed for labor rights and worker rights and strikes and standing up against these power systems and horizontalizing the hierarchy. So they've done an incredibly effective job. The Red Scare of the 50s in response to the progressive era of the 30s and 40s was a backlash to inject this anti-communist notion into the culture. It still exists today. You see it all the time. Anything that sounds vaguely like it might help regular people, they decide is immediately socialism or communism because they have demonized those words so effectively. Myself too. I'm very new to those concepts not feeling like fearful things to me. I remember even hearing the word Marx. Not that I heard that word a lot, but that word is often, that's why you hear it thrown out so much. Cultural Marxism and this and that. They loved adding the word Marx to anything because as a child somehow I picked up the idea that Marx, not that I was taught what Marx was or what Marxism was at all, because I would have been fucking persuaded, because when I did finally learn the kind of foundations of it is like, I was like, oh my God, that's like stuff I think about all the time. That's exactly. Wait a minute, like someone else has thought about this shit too? That's what I was like, oh. And then after I learned more, I was like, oh, now I know why they didn't want me to learn any of that. I see. All you got to know about communism or capital or socialism is that the capitalists are afraid you'll learn what it is, that they prevent you from knowing the truth. That's all you got to know. I mean, you should actually know more than that. But if whatever the capitalists are afraid you'll learn is stuff that you need to learn, right? So even the news person gets into this as being undemocratic.
Any attempt to restrict drinking and driving here is viewed by some as downright undemocratic.
Downright undemocratic. Now she is just setting up for what they're saying, so maybe I'm not, but like the framing of that still pings it. Oh my God, we love democracy here in America. Oh, are you cool with black people voting? And well, I mean, we just let women vote. Yeah, I guess I'm okay with that. Well, you would have been against that. And why am I suddenly arguing with people all the way back to the women's suffrage movement? Not until the 1900s could women like it's. What am I getting at? All right, let's play it again.
Any attempt to restrict drinking and driving here is viewed by some as downright undemocratic.
It's kind of getting communist when a fella can't put in a hard day's work, put in 11, 12 hours a day, and then get in your truck and at least drink 1 or 2 beers.
11 or 12 hours a day, and then drive home drinking some beer. Honestly, I don't think 1 or 2 beers on the way home is necessarily the worst thing. I am for it not being legal. I don't think people should necessarily should drink or operate heavy vehicles while inebriated. All the more reason why we should end car supremacy and design our world around energy efficient modes of transportation that seem to make people happier, that do better for communities, like high-speed rail, high-density living, and et cetera, et cetera. All forms of transportation come at some kind of, list of positives, list of negatives. The negatives of the cars is there's a story I was reading the other day about how America pedestrian deaths are increasing is a standout, and it's an unusual item compared to other countries that have done much better about reducing pedestrian deaths from cars. In America, that number is actually climbing. It's like 6,500 a year. It's an incredibly unsafe mode of transportation. It's expensive. It's polluting. It sustains geopolitical relationships, and it's all about the way they design cities in America has a lot to do with the way global wars played out in the 20th century, and because they wanted to sell as much oil as they could as fast as they could, because they had quarterly profits earnings reports to get into, just so that we could service the churn of the capitalists. And the people I'm talking about there are dead. They've been dead for decades. The old timey capitalists of the early 20th century, who made those decisions to get rid of transit, mass transit in LA and stuff like that. But this guy's working to like this. What's normal to him is working. Like, I doubt he has the class consciousness that he needed at the time to become a Marxist revolutionary. But like, this is what it is. This guy kind of, to me, encapsulates a very, and I don't even mean to make this about this individual, but it seems very emblematic of that kind of like, well, yeah, you work 12 hours, you deserve a couple of beers to unwind. And that's what beer was used as, is a, like, you bust your ass all day long, you watch your friend get his hand chewed up in a machine, and then you go get drunk, and you get up, you do it again. If you're one of those guys that doesn't attack their family, through their unprocessed trauma and their unprocessed rage, well, lucky for them. But a lot of men came home drunk, took it out on the kids and the wife, or just absent. Alcohol just kind of makes you an absent presence in a way. So the usefulness of the highly intoxicating effects of a powerful drug such as alcohol was part of how they kind of kept labor under control, because people getting boozed up and drunk after work is a better alternative than people having meetings and sharpening sticks, metaphorically, and planning revolts. That's why they don't like activists and leftists and communists and queer people. Not that all queer people are labor activists, but like the side of the world that always pushed back against this stuff are the ones that they would send the police to commit severe acts of violence against, and who they would label as communists. This guy would be liberated by someone who would fit that description, or maybe fall under one of those words, because that person would have been fighting for the 5-day work week. If you enjoy Saturday, it's because communists and marginalized groups stood up against the fucking capitalists. That's the only reason you have a Saturday. And it's also why we need to switch to the 4-day work week. In my, I have a whole rant about that. But yeah, working 12 hours a day, having a couple of beers, go back and do it the next day, and eventually you die before you become an expensive old person. And this is during an era, though, when wages weren't as devastatingly low compared to the cost of living as it is now.
They're making it laws where you can't drink when you want to. You have to wear a seatbelt when you're driving. And pretty soon we're going to be a communist country.
Communists are on their way. They don't want you bouncing around inside your car during a high physics environment. That's what a crash is. Suddenly the world just goes, and your body just gets all slapped around. And we figured out that if you strap yourself in, you have a little higher chance of not having severe injuries in a car wreck. When seatbelts were introduced as a law, there was a pushback. There's always a reactionary freak out from the right. And I actually even remember my grandma once. She was born in 1927, so she would have been, she was 20 years old in 1947, for instance, just to give a sense. And so, like, her whole deal, that wasn't her whole deal, but I do remember her once, like, talking about not wearing a seatbelt. And she says, like, I might need to get out of the car in a crash. Like, that was just exactly one of the phrases that I guess that used to be around during that time. It's the government telling you that you have to do something. It's literally controlling your behavior. They're saying we are in charge of your arm for a moment while you're in your car. Big government controls your body, because what you want your body to do is reach up, do this, and plug in this thing. And if one of our people sees that you did not do that you weren't compelled to submit your body's control of your arm to the seatbelt, because it takes a physical motion to do it, then we'll pull you over and make you apologize to the dumbest guy in your high school. And if you're nice to him, he won't beat you up. He'll just write you a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt. And we all agree. Yeah, I guess it's fair. Okay, control my arm. I'll put a seatbelt on. No big deal. Because it's safer. It is safer. It's a lot safer. This is an anecdote, but this one lady I remember told a story about her daughter getting into a bad crash, wrecked the car, but her only injury was just a big bruise across her whole body. Like she said, she had a big bruise from her shoulder down to her hip. The seatbelt bruised her from being held in by the seatbelt. But that's it. That was all she had in a car that was destroyed. But yeah, same reason that submarine didn't have seatbelts, though. You might need to get out. Don't want to be tied up in some rope. You might need to get out during a crash. There's no getting out. So good stuff. Fine. Let's keep moving. What are we already at 36 minutes? If I can keep this under 2 hours, it'd be a fucking miracle. Astronomy. Guys, as I promised, more science stories. Do I know all the details? Of course not. But this was teased. This is one of those announcements where the scientists go, hey, we're going to do something we got a pretty exciting announcement Thursday at such and such date. And then everybody's like, oh, wow, they teased it. Normally, you don't do that. You just put it out there and it just becomes part of the churn. But what they discovered, and this is preliminary, although there's still going to be more research put into this, and by monitoring pulsars, which are these highly energetic, I think they're neutron stars or something, but there's these stars that are I believe they're the cores of suns that have gone through the red giant phase. And this doesn't happen to all of them. It's usually very large stars become pulsars. But they're spitting out these giant jets of energy, these huge, I think they're gamma rays. I could be wrong. I'm sure there's people who know this stuff that are rolling their eyes at me, as I deserve. But they are like giant beams of light. They're huge. They blast out very regularly. And usually they spin incredibly fast, like hundreds of times a second fast. Like 10 times a second is incredibly fast for something that weighs the size of multiple suns of ours, or something like that. They're these really powerful objects. And they're I think it varies, but they're usually spinning. The pulsar jet is usually like a little wobbly, so it's not just like an axis straight up that spins. It's actually, so it's like this big giant thing that goes around, and they're incredibly stable and predictable. So what they've done is, by studying these these pulsars, and more facilities are coming on board that are going to give us so much better fidelity, better information detail. So we'll be able to study this stuff even with much more clarity in a broader way. By monitoring the exact timing of these, and then looking for little dips and slight changes to the pulsars. I don't know how many they're following. It's like 10 to 15. I'm not sure if that's correct, but they're able to detect gravitational waves. Essentially, they've turned the galaxy into a detector using these, what we understand about how the pulsars are supposed to behave, and then they're able to like tease out that this one actually dipped a little bit, and then that one over there moved a little bit. It was a little off time, and this is incredible stuff. But they're able to then piece out or tease out of that there is this kind of constant hum, like right here. We could just read it, I guess. The universe is continuously rippling with gravitational waves, a 15-year survey has reported. Using pulsars as distant beacons and radio telescopes to plumb the galaxy, a massive collaboration of astronomers and physicists has found strong evidence of a gravitational wave background undulating through the cosmos. A single wave may take years to decades to crest and fall. So gravitational waves are caused by intense disruptions in what you'd call the fabric of space-time, but it's where usually it's supermassive black holes. It's generally binary partners where two huge black holes spinning around each other. A few years back, some years back, they didn't record the audio, but they recorded a merger of two black holes, and they were able to then take that because the frequency goes up as these things are spinning. As they get closer, they start to spin faster. It was on the Colbert Show. I don't have the video of this, but so they played the noise, using like, okay, we can make this sound something, and it sounds like this. It goes, zoop. It's like, whoop, whoop. It's like that. That was the better one. Whoop. But like to make a high pitched frequency when you have objects many times the size of the sun spinning around a single point because they're about to combine into one giant black hole, to make a whoop, like it's like powers and forces beyond anything that's conceivable to a human brain. It's really fucking cool shit. So when these things, and it's not just the mergers, it can also, so as these incredibly intense concentrations of mass are circling each other, they're actually bending gravity a little bit, and they send out waves. They literally are stretching space itself. Gravity actually transmits at the same causality rate that light does. So if the sun were to like suddenly disappear, we would not know it for 8 minutes because the sun, 8.5, it's something like that. The sun's light has to cross all that distance, but we would also continue to orbit exactly as if the sun were there for 8 minutes. And as soon as the gravity absence, if we disappeared the sun, difficult to do, so unlikely to happen. As soon as that reaches us, the gravity, then we would just fly off in a straight line. It would be a really bad day for everybody. The sun would turn off, and then our physics would just jolt us all into some weird direction, and the Earth would just suddenly freeze and go off in a straight line, and it would be a horror. But gravity isn't instant. It's not instantaneous. It's this. That's why the whole concept of light, the light speed of the universe is actually the speed of causality. So it's the speed at which information crosses space, crosses through the distance between objects. And gravity is exactly it's the speed of gravity is the same as the speed of light. It's because they're both the same thing, which is the speed of causality, and that's fascinating. And so these things are pumping. They're like little heavy big pumps that are like just hammering away because they're so big, and because now that we can kind of let these pulsars tell us, we can map the ways that these gravitational information is being changed in the universe and in the galaxy, which is we happen to be in a pretty big galaxy too, above average. So it's amazing. It's really cool stuff, and this is going to bring on more and more knowledge and information to this. So Yeah, here. The detection of these background gravitational waves is a long-awaited result. Scientists think that these waves largely resulted from pairs of supermassive black holes at the centers of merging galaxies, with some contribution possibly from the Big Bang itself. The ability to measure these waves directly should inform scientists about the origin and history of the universe. Isn't that nice? So a hum in space. When gravitational waves pass, they cause space-time, or the fabric of the universe, to ripple like a wiggling waterbed. Ooh. I think having sex on a waterbed seems like it'd be hard and annoying, right? I would definitely do it. Don't get me wrong. It'd probably be fun because it's, but like, it doesn't seem like a good surface for banging. I'd rather get in the waterbed. I'd rather turn it into a pool, cut the top off, and then have sex inside the water. This is good science talk. Binary systems of massive objects like black holes and neutron stars create these waves. As the objects spiral toward each other and their accelerations increase, they send off energy as gravitational waves. The first ever detection of gravitational waves was reported in 2015 by the researchers at the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, LIGO, a set of mile-long observatories in Washington and Louisiana. But the signals observed by LIGO and subsequent similar facilities can only detect gravitational waves that resonate at high frequencies. This is because they are produced by relatively small objects, merging neutron stars or black holes born from single supernova explosions. So that's the high frequency I was talking about. But scientists have long predicted another form of gravitational waves, a continuous hum produced by pairs of supermassive black holes, each with a mass of millions to billions of suns, slowly spiraling toward each other. These emit lower frequency gravitational waves than observatories like LIGO can detect. These stochastic or background gravitational waves are rumbling from all over the universe at the speed of light, gently buffeting Earth from all directions. So there's just this constant of these huge, slow, big waves that are being caused by gigantic things spinning around each other. It's just so cool, man. It's so neat that they're able to like tease out that this is a thing. Yeah. So LIGO is what it is it's two L-shaped lasers, right? So they have it's a 90-degree thing. They're what does it say, a mile long. They're really big because they're mile long. So they have like one side of it is a laser that goes that way, and then 90 degrees off that is a laser that goes that way. And they're able to read the disruptions in the time that it takes for the laser to come back across that mile. And because it's a 90-degree thing at the same spot in the Earth, they can actually like tell very sensitive. It's very sensitive, but they can read the high frequency gravitational difference from one side to the other. And then they have another. So there's two of them. That is like a proven successful prototype kind of thing, because there's another project planned. I don't know the name of it, and I might be using 3, but they're going to do this in space. So people say, the Earth itself has all these noises. It has earthquakes. There's, reasons like they have to account for all that shit while they're at these facilities. Like, of course they do account for that. Why don't we just put these laser things in space? We basically just need 3 stations, I guess. I do think it is a triangle. So there's a mission planned. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to be and the distances that they'll be able to do is far, far, far bigger than 1 mile. So this is cool. This is cool shit that they're going to be doing stuff like that. Eventually, they'll have a far greater ability to read all that stuff. Another kind of thing. What's interesting about this is that it's the reason this gravitational wave stuff is a big deal is that up until 2015, actually, the only data we were able to receive and record was electromagnetic radiation. And we can do a pretty good job at that. We've gotten a lot of practice at it, not just visible light, but everything on either side. That's the power of the James Webb Space Telescope, is that it's so cold. It's cooled down so much that it's actually very good for infrared, which if the machine itself is a little bit too warm, then infrared becomes invisible. I mean, it's always invisible to our eyes, but like the machine, in order to detect the most distant infrared we can, it has to be chilled and cold, and it does a good job at that. And the next one they're planning is even bigger. So that's still just electromagnetic radiation. Gravitational waves are outside that. They're not electromagnetic. They're gravity. They're gravity being big old fat waves of gravity being pushed around. And so that's a second source of data. It's a second kind of information that we can acquire. There's a third one now, and this is there's a neutrino detector. I think Neil deGrasse Tyson did a thing where he's in a neutrino detector. It's a big room filled with water and all these like copper colored balls. But there's a thing called it's a cube of ice in Antarctica. It's 1 kilometer long. And it's not actually like they didn't build the ice. They drilled holes along this cube, or in a square, basically. So they drilled deep holes and they put detector something or other down in each one. So they're able to like turn this gigantic cube of ice in Antarctica into a neutrino detector. So neutrinos are these tiny little particles that don't interact with mass, or they very, very rarely interact with mass. Otherwise, we would ever be able to detect them. But they're like, there's trillions of them in your body right now. They're coursing through all, like, everything. They're everywhere. They fill the universe. When stars go supernova, we do have more than one. Like, that's not the only neutrino detector. There's neutrino detectors in the world, and so the first thing that happens that's detectable when when the core collapses inside a star, you can't tell. It doesn't automatically blow up. But the first thing that happens is that neutrinos start pouring out of the star because they're not impeded by the mass of the star. Everything else has to sort of go a little bit slower. And once it all hits, it goes very fast, obviously. But the very first thing is all of a sudden neutrino production just goes crazy. So when they detect that a star is about to go supernova, they can tell because all of a sudden neutrino production increases, and if they can dial it into a direction, they can say, oh my god, that star is probably about to blow up or something, or they can there's actually like useful science that can come out of that. So this big one in Antarctica is a huge cube with the drilled holes. It's very cool. And so every once in a while, one of these trillions and trillions and trillions of neutrinos that's streaming through all mass, all matter at all times will actually interact with some kind of particle. You can just search for a neutrino detector aquarium. There's a way to like use like this foggy shit inside a fish tank, an empty glass box, like no fish or anything. And you see these little lines that show up because those are like the very rare neutrinos. But because there's trillions and trillions of them, if it's a tiny, tiny percentage, it's still like kind of frequent, like every second or two or whatever. I don't know how frequent it is, but that's the third reading that we now have. So we have electromagnetic radiation, gravitational waves, and neutrinos. There's 3 separate buckets of data that can now be kind of monitored and collected, and we can improve our ability to sort of read all this stuff. I love it. I think it's cool. Is it going to save lives? Maybe not. Is a percentage of the budgets of the planet and the kind of things that human beings are capable of doing? I think it's a wonderful thing that we have this ability, and that we're able to increase our knowledge and answer some of these questions and ask new amazing questions and give us some interesting insights into the way this mysterious thing we call existence functions and stuff. Can't just rely on assholes like me who are going to make some shit up because they thought about it while they were falling asleep. That used to be the source of information. I think I figured it out. I thought about it really hard. I think a little bit harder than most people, and that makes me right. So listen up, everybody. I do actually believe. See, here we go. I think that the heat death. I love entropy. It's my favorite concept. To think of entropy as difference. I shouldn't go down this too much, but low entropy is actually like concentrated difference, and then high entropy is increased disorder. So entropy is a measure of basically of how much disorder there is. So it's at the very far end of the universe, according to the heat death of the universe, the theory that it all trends towards absolute zero. It trends towards perfect evenness. the death of difference. So sameness is increasing, basically. By disorder is increasing, which means everything eventually becomes the same. My personal theory is that it eventually reaches a point where it becomes half a wave. I know that doesn't make, I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody, but in order to sustain a universe, you have to have detectable difference. And at some point it reaches a part where there's no frequency whatsoever. And every single thing in every single direction is exactly the same, at which point it collapses or some sort of cycle starts back over because of the death of difference, the true death of difference. I also think that a lot of that has to do with consciousness. I think that biology is, when you start applying this concept to the notion of systems being closed or open, biology's, your body, the earth itself, we are open systems. We don't function unless we are taking in new input. We need food, we need water, energy, we need social stuff, there's reasons, but you take away those things and you die. You take away the sun, the earth dies. It's an open system because it has to have inputs in order for it to sustain what it's doing with entropy. And I think biology, each body, each plant, each animal, each thing, and then you get, the more complex it gets, it has to do with the rate of information deletion. So that, like, essentially your brain, the reason I think human beings do have a higher form of consciousness is that our minds are more capable of storing information than others, because of education, because of teaching, because of the social nature of our evolution. We became these incredibly information-heavy, dependent animals because we communicate, we read each other all the time, we transmit information across time using language, using abstract concepts. Like abstraction is not real, but it's also very real. It's literally driven our evolution. There's a gene that evolved, they think, that gave us the ability to enunciate words, that our tongue functions the way our tongues are so precise and useful for language creation. This is believed that this gene wouldn't have evolved were it not for humans being social creatures who needed to talk, needed to communicate. And so I think that entropy, the concept of entropy, is related to consciousness, in the sense that, like, consciousness is almost like the visible light spectrum of sustained information storage. The universe does not store information. That's actually completely incorrect. The universe is itself information storage. That's what time is. Because if you look across time, you're looking at stored information that's just only now arriving at your location. And you go really far back. But our brains, our bodies, our nervous systems hold information, and I think consciousness is an emergent property, is an operant condition of the need to hold on to all that knowledge, all that information. And I mean it in like not like specifically the weight, of your dog when you were 4, although that is interesting. Not just like literal information that you think of in your world, but like the notion that you're artificially suspending the deletion of information, the process of trending towards heat death. And it's happening at a highly localized scale. And so that's why our souls, our brains, produce something that we experience as consciousness. And it's there's probably a better way to articulate all that. So that's good. That's some good podcasting right there. I have so much more to fucking get to. I'm not going to jump through all this science-y shit too much, or sorry, Supreme Court stuff. Fucking corrupt ass system, this horrible rotten ass society. 9 people we imbue with all this power. But these 6, these are politicians wearing judges' robes. This is who these people are. Sam Alito recently was discovered to be, shocker, the guy who cites laws from the 1300s in order to justify taking away the bodily rights of women, turns out to be corrupt. I'm sure you're shocked to hear that. So this is some Vox here. The Supreme Court has an ethics problem. Justice Alito's fishing trip is the latest proof. A new ProPublica report renews questions about Justice's disclosure of gifts that could pose a conflict of interest. He went fishing, paid for by one of his sugar daddies. Look at these fish, by the way. Aren't those some pretty damn good looking fish? Wouldn't you love to hold one up in front of your belly button for a photo? Huh? Those are salmon. They're going to eat them later. Slice, slice. Num, num. Lots of corruption. Justice Samuel Alito took luxury fishing vacation with GOP billionaire who later had cases before the court. Oh, my God. How could he possibly be influenced by his friends giving him all kinds of money? In early July 2008, Samuel Alito stood on a riverbank in a remote corner of Alaska. The Supreme Court justice was on vacation at a luxury fishing lodge that charged more than $1,000 a day. And after catching a king salmon nearly the size of his leg, Alito posed for a picture. To his left, a man stood beaming. Paul Singer, a hedge fund billionaire who has repeatedly asked the Supreme Court to rule in his favor in high-stakes business disputes. Singer was more than a fellow angler. He flew Alito to Alaska on a private jet. If the justice chartered the plane himself, the cost would have exceeded $100,000 one way. Here's a little bit. You have $100,000. Let's go have a nice vacation. You know, we'll agree to never talk about the homeless people we murder for fun every Christmas morning, as all rich people do. In the years that followed, Singer's hedge fund came before the court at least 10 times in cases where his role was often covered by the legal press and mainstream media. In 2014, the court agreed to resolve a key issue in a decade-long battle between Singer's hedge fund and the nation of Argentina. Alito did not recuse himself from the case and voted with a 7-1 majority in Singer's favor. The hedge fund was ultimately paid $2.4 billion. Well, he did work hard. These fucking hedge funds. These are some of the biggest ghouls in our society that they don't pay. Their tax rates 10, 14%, if they even are ever forced to do that much. The amount of fucking money and the influence they have over people's lives, buying up properties, buying up all kinds of companies, wrecking them. It's just madness that we tolerate this. Alito did not report the 2008 fishing trip on his annual financial disclosures. By failing to disclose the private jet flight Singer provided, Alito appears to have violated a federal law that requires justices to disclose most gifts, according to ethics law experts. Experts said they could not identify an instance of a justice ruling on a case after receiving an expensive gift paid for by one of the parties. Experts said they could not identify an instance. Didn't you just describe after see? Okay. Here's a little bit. This might make that make sense. If you were good friends, this is someone talking. If you were good friends, what were you doing ruling on this case? Said Charles Gay, Geyh, an Indiana University law professor and leading expert on recusals. And if you weren't good friends, what were you doing accepting this? Referring to the flight on the private jet. So, yeah, these guys are, and Clarence Thomas, is corrupt as fuck with that guy, billionaire Harlan Crow, the guy who has a garden of villains. He has statues of evil people in his in his compound. I actually saw some stuff about Justice Roberts selling stocks, buying them, and then not ruling on stuff that affected those companies that he did not have. He did not disclose that he owned that stock. So yeah, these guys are all in on it, man. This is just it, though. This is the billionaires get to buy justices, they get to buy politicians, they get to buy Congress people, they get to buy presidents, and control local people, and they get to buy media. And we just like, oh yeah, that's just business. That's just how it goes. What are we supposed to do about it? Nothing. It's fucking gross. And then when this story came out, when ProPublica was actually doing this reporting, Alito ran to the the Wall Street Journal. I guess they asked him for clarification, or they told him that it was going to be published, and he immediately runs to his pals in the right wing movement at the Wall Street Journal and published an op-ed of his own to rebut it. Alito claims those legal and ethics experts are wrong, though this is back to the Vox article. Though he did not comment directly in the ProPublica story, he did counter both allegations via a Wall Street Journal op-ed he published on Tuesday. In that op-ed, Alito argued that he did not need to disclose a travel gift because it qualified as personal hospitality, in quotes, which he argued is exempted from such rules. He also claimed that he was unaware of the connection Singer had to the business in the 2014 case he weighed in on, which is why he did not recuse himself. Alito said, too, that even if he knew of Singer's ties, he wouldn't have had to recuse himself because they did not discuss any business or cases before the court in their interactions. Neither charge is valid, Alito wrote. All right, one more paragraph here. Ethics experts note that that transportation has not been exempted from disclosures in the law and say that Alito's interpretation of such rules is a bit of a stretch. Additionally, some are calling for document reforms, arguing that information about the parties before the court should be more transparent if Alito was unable to identify Singer's ties to the business affected in the 2014 case he oversaw. Well, you can't expect him to know everything. He's only got lifetime appointment and supreme power over the society of which he rules, is clearly a political operator. So last week, it was a big, ugly clusterfuck. There was a couple of cases. I don't have it all in me. I honestly, like I was saying, I was depressed and really not barely tracking this stuff. But there was a couple earlier in the week where that seemed like they did something somewhat rational. Like they didn't just do the automatic right wing. This is what the evil people want, and so of course that's what they get. The case called Moore v. Harper, related to. I know I'm going to get these details wrong, but they ruled against the independent judicial legislature movement, which is this concept that state legislators should be allowed to basically decide where delegates go in presidential elections. I think that's what it basically comes down to, so that they don't have to follow presidential. They can just overrule the way their citizens voted because they're a, quote, independent legislator, not beholden to the federal mandates of how we conduct national elections. I guess they ruled against that or something like that. But then the big ones hit where they ruled that, I think this is on Thursday, that it's okay to discriminate. This person should not be a person who ran a website design firm should not be allowed to or not be forced to make a website for a gay couple, a wedding website, on the basis that they discriminate against gays, that they rule that that's fine, that you should, it's like a person should be allowed to do that. This is according to the AP. The headline here is, the man named in the Supreme Court's gay rights ruling says he didn't request a wedding website. So this is the big thing about this one. This is a hoax. Like, it was made up. There was never a person who said, I need a gay wedding website. It didn't happen. It was just a hypothetical, and it reached the level of the Supreme Court in ruling that you shouldn't have to do this, even as a hypothetical. And the name of the person, they've contacted this person, and they're like, I don't know what this is all about. So Denver, a Colorado web designer who the U.S. Supreme Court ruled Friday could refuse to make wedding websites for gay couples cited a request from a man who says he never asked to work with her. The request in dispute, from a person identified as Stewart, wasn't the basis for the federal lawsuit filed preemptively 7 years ago by web designer Lori Smith before she started making wedding websites. But as the case advanced, it was referenced by her attorneys when lawyers for the state of Colorado pressed Smith on whether she had sufficient grounds to sue. So they're saying, what were your grounds for suing this? You don't have, and then during the thing, they came up with this concept of this person who asked her to make a gay wedding website. The revelation distracts from Smith's victory at a time when she might have been basking in her win, which is widely considered a setback for gay rights. Yeah, because the fucking evil monsters on the Supreme Court have said it's okay to discriminate against gay people. It's a huge setback. Smith named Stewart and included a website service request from him listing his phone number and email address in 2017 court documents. But Stewart told the Associated Press he never submitted the request and didn't know his name was invoked in the lawsuit until he was contacted this week by a reporter from the New Republic, which first reported his denial. So they claimed this guy in court documents in 2017, and then someone this week went and was like, is this you? And he's like, I don't know what this is. I was incredibly surprised given the fact that I've been happily married to a woman for the last 15 years, said Stewart, who declined to give his last name for a fear of harassment and threats, of course. His contact information, but not his last name, were listed in court documents. He added that he was a designer and could design my own website if I needed to. If I needed a gay site, I would do my own gay wedding website, okay? Me and my wife, we could do our gay wedding website. And was concerned no one had checked into the validity of the request. That's crazy. And this got to the Supreme Court, and it's become a major setback for civil rights for an entire group of people. Smith's lawyer, Kristen Wagoner, said at a Friday news conference that the wedding request naming Stewart was submitted through Smith's website and denied it was fabricated. She suggested it could have been a troll making the request, something that's happened with other clients she has represented. In 2018, her client, Colorado baker Jack Phillips, won a partial U.S. Supreme Court victory after refusing to make a gay couple's wedding cake, citing his Christian faith. Fucking discriminatory Christians. Yeah, so maybe someone used this guy's name in a troll, but that's what she's suggesting. They could, yeah. I mean, or they made it up themselves. They could be the trolls that they're saying were out there. Yeah, it's really messed up. So they made, now it's okay to discriminate against gay people, but the next day, not okay to use race in making decisions about applications to colleges, to universities and colleges. This is a website or a ABC site here. I have, I don't know why you picked this one, but the headline here is most Americans approve of Supreme Court decision restricting use of race in college admissions. So they've ended affirmative actions. Affirmative action, I mean, which is one of those words, those phrases that has been bleeding, B-L-E-A-T, bleated like crazy among the sheep on the right. They've been screaming. I've been, since I can remember, I've been, hearing right wingers bitching about affirmative action. Not that I'm hanging around a lot of the right winger, bitch circles, but this one's been around since the start, and they finally got their way. They finally got this Supreme Court, which 3 of the recent, I think arguably even 1 or 2 of the others, George W. Bush, I don't know if he appointed anybody during his first term, in which he lost a popular vote. So, but 3 were appointed by Trump from a guy who didn't win the popular vote in the election. And so I think that should somehow restrict you from being able to appoint lifetime appointments, or at least give Biden fuel for going and fighting for Americans. Instead, he's been quoted saying he doesn't want to politicize. He doesn't want to pursue anything like expanding the court because he doesn't want to he doesn't want it to become political, which is just fucking mealy mouth Democratic weakness. So here, let's hit play on this video and see what they say. This is ABC News.
Just admissions policies in higher
Restart.
decision on affirmative action, striking down race-conscious admissions policies in higher education as unconstitutional. We are tracking all the angles this morning. Let's go first to our senior national correspondent, Terry Moran at the Supreme Court. Terry, good morning.
Good morning, Terry.
Good morning, Mary. This is one of those cases people will be talking about for years, the Supreme Court ending affirmative action in higher education. But now the question is, what comes next? This morning,
except for military academies. They did say it's okay to consider race in military institutions of education, indicating that we want to, we'll blow your bodies up, but we're not going to let people of who have slightly darker skin than the anointed race mess up our elite colleges and universities. But yeah, go ahead over there. Yeah, we could always use a few more people in our gun and explosions businesses.
The Supreme Court sending colleges, universities, and prospective students into a scramble as it ends affirmative action in higher education. In a 6-3 decision, the court's conservative majority once again overturning decades of precedent and fundamentally changing American law and American life. Chief Justice John Roberts declaring that admissions policies at Harvard and the University of North Carolina violate the Constitution's guarantee of equal protection, saying they unavoidably employ race in a negative manner and involve racial stereotyping. Roberts adding,
"Can you believe it? Can you believe it? In America, racial stereotyping." The reason this is a challenge as far as that goes is that the simplicity of it for those who don't really dive into the nuance is it's a simple story to say. It's like, well, why should a black guy? Because what the story they try to tell you is that they take roles, positions away, or, like the slots in the school away from a hardworking, deserving white kid and give it to a who has all the qualifications, and give it to an unqualified black person or Mexican person or something like that. When in fact they're just saying that it's okay to include that consideration as a small Band-Aid on addressing America's deeply rooted core institution of racism, which is its primary thing. Racial stereotyping is America. That's what the whole legacy. So they pretend, and this position protects a legacy admission. So they're still allowed to consider that your parents went there, and your parents are donors to the school, and they can still include. That's just dried racism. That's America's. It's like glue. It's like if you're not going to scrape off the dried glue of racism, of legacy racism, because through every single institution in America but like if it were started in the 1800s, obviously racism existed far before that. Its usefulness to the colonialism project is just too impossible to ignore. But from every single institution's inception, it was explicitly racist. It explicitly used racial stereotyping, and it was probably so normalized, I doubt they even considered it to be what we would perceive as racism. Not that makes it okay, but it was so in the water. It was such a dominant factor in this, people celebrating this decision to, this is just privileging the advantaged. Again, we're reverting back to privileging the advantaged, which are generally wealthy white people, and the children of wealthy white people who go on to become wealthy white people themselves. Let's just keep going here. Hit me, Terry.
Involve racial stereotyping. Roberts adding, a student must be treated based on his or her experiences as an individual, not on the basis of race. But the court also...
But if they're gay, they can be discriminated against if they need a gay wedding. Justice Roberts, you corrupt person?
That some individual consideration of the racial background of an applicant is still lawful. Chief Justice Roberts writing that colleges can consider race in an applicant's essay, for example, if it's about how race affected his or her life, but that such consideration must be tied to that student's unique ability. In a blistering dissent joined by the other two liberals, Justice Sonia Sotomayor condemned the majority's, quote, superficial rule of colorblindness. And she declared the devastating impact of this decision cannot be overstated. Ignoring racial inequality will not make it disappear. And the court's only black woman, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, issued her own forceful dissent, writing, with let them eat cake obliviousness, today the majority pulls the ripcord and announces colorblindness for all by legal fiat. But deeming race irrelevant in law does not make it so in life.
She's been making. Oh, God damn it! I clicked on that. She's been making a lot of. I think her business in this world we're going to see seems like a really brilliant person, but she's going to be doing a lot of dissenting. It's mostly her contribution. Sadly, will be in the losing minority of the voters of the Supreme Court, and then writing dissents that people then quote. I hope. Unfortunately, unless we actually do what we should, which is, I don't know, rewrite the entire Constitution completely, or sparing that, packing the court, increasing, actually putting on a court that reflects the society in which it lives, not these activist monsters that are political actors, that are political operators. So just saying that the colorblindness idea, like that, so what these folks, this simple narrative of any consideration of race is itself racism, and therefore by having affirmative action, you are you are the ones that are being racist by allowing consideration of race. So therefore, we are saying there is no consideration of race and everything will be fine from there on out. Ignores the fact, the lived experience and the lived reality that anybody paying attention to, and of course we all agree, or I mean, if you're listening to this, you probably do, but that the way race functions in real life, as Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson here seems to be saying, is very real and very impactful, and it has huge implications for people. You can't just decide that we're now colorblind. Maybe there's some distant sci-fi future where we'd look back and it's 500 years from now or 10,000 years from now, who knows how long it'll take, and we'll say like, wow, they were all really worked up about their fucking skin color back then, weren't they? Geez, where did that come from? Like, it's not like, well, everybody was crazy. Well, gee, the story is actually European colonialism needed justification for the theft and thuggery that flowed out of those places in order to, so they had to create these concepts that, you know, people with different skin color deserved to be abused and were helped by our presence, and, you know, all the maniacal ways that race is applied as a tool of oppression and a tool of self-delusion. That's a big part of the why. And it's nuanced, it's complicated, only because everybody has different concepts. We don't all necessarily think of these things in precisely the same ways. Let's just keep going here.
Make it so in life. Outside the court, a couple hundred gathered in protest and in support of the decision. But most Americans have said they would back it.
Up. I want to see what the supporters' signs say. Support SFFA fair admissions for all. They'll have the exact same sign too.
But most Americans have said they would back it. A poll last fall finding 63% say colleges shouldn't consider race in admissions, including majorities of white, Hispanic, and Asian and Pacific Islander Americans.
The biggest group of beneficiaries of it, by the way, are white people too, by the way, like white women especially. There's some stats about that going around.
Thinking about what does this mean for the future?
Across the country, students and schools are now thrown into uncertainty, left wondering what this means for applications this fall, for college campuses in the future, and for a generation of black and brown students.
I know just from looking at the data that these campuses will see less Black and Latino students. And that's what I'm scared of, because many students who look like me already don't make up a lot of these institutions.
But others argue this will make the admissions process more fair.
We judge people not based on the color of their skin, but by what they do, who they are, their character, their achievements. And I think that in the college admissions process, that's only right.
President Biden announcing his administration is looking for new ways to ensure opportunity for minority students and continued diversity on campus, directing the Department of Education to study the issue, and condemning the court's conservative majority and its march to the right, saying, quote, "This is not a normal court."
This is not a normal court, folks.
Extraordinarily harsh, extraordinarily personal criticism by a sitting president of the justices of the Supreme Court. Presidents criticize court decisions, but the justices themselves have usually been out of bounds. In an interview later, Biden explaining that what he meant by that was that he believes this is a court far more willing to overturn longstanding precedents, but he added, quote, "Its value system is different." Whit?
Well, they're conservative. I mean, they're an unaccountable super legislator. They're making decisions. They're choosing cases based on not choosing cases is another way that they make decisions. If they decide to not take something up, that settles it completely. Yeah, they're doing like the right-wing project of sustaining white supremacy in America. They're sustaining the hierarchy. These guys they're mechanics on the if you can picture a physical structure like the hierarchy backbone, it's like, for some reason right now I'm picturing a giant threaded bolt with different nuts and different stages up it. It's vertical. They're just sitting there tightening the hierarchy. They're making sure that we don't flatten that hierarchy. In order to strengthen a caste or class-based hierarchy, you have to allow discrimination. You have to say, yeah, it's okay for you to place people above or below you. That's exactly what that is. I've seen some stupid fucking comments from people who agree that affirmative action on the should have been. I think it's an imperfect solution. I'm not saying that it's the ideal. It's the one thing we need to fix all the problems. That's clearly not the case. It doesn't go anywhere near far enough. But the argument that because people who are get into colleges who are of non-white persuasions then can become stigmatized by that, because people can then suspect that they weren't admitted for their the fact that the stigmatizing happens is the justification for getting rid of the affirmative action policy altogether, is accepting that we should allow to revert back to the discrimination of the old way in order to because the people who are the stigmatizers are applying judgment. Meaning, like why is that an argument? Who gives a fuck that they're stigmatized? The stigma comes from the people we don't agree with. Like, does that make you see what I'm saying? And besides, also that the it should be class based differentiation. You know, if you consider that someone comes from an upper crust family versus like some rural, not that only rural people are, but you know what I mean, some less privileged type. That the less privileged person should then get a little bit more, you know, consideration to get in. That's what affirmative action does. It is about actually allowing access to those spaces to people who were prevented from getting into those spaces in order to build out the class access, to gain access to those upper classes. That sets us into the kind of conversation around elite stuff. And I think there's a whole different way of conceptualizing the purpose of education. Obviously in this world, it's just mostly there to, you know, produce workers, obedience and workers and obedient workers for the capitalist class, because it's a fucking sick, gross thing. And then the student debt case, obviously, student loans, rejecting Biden's plan to alleviate a bunch of that. And just, you know, of course, the hypocrisy detectors are out. All the PPP loans that were forgiven for these Congress people who own businesses and others who are, you know, saying, yeah, students should pay back every dime that and then people are showing that you got $700,000 forgiven, and the amount of misery that's being imposed on people just via the student debt thing, setting aside just the kind of cosmic violence, the beautiful metaphysical nature of consciousness for me all rests on access to information and the rate at which it is held in suspension in your brain. And so in other words, education and teaching and learning are like how human beings cooperate across time. Like it's a cosmic act to learn, for a person who has knowledge to be with someone who doesn't have knowledge. And then at the end of that interaction, two people have knowledge. That's insane. That's an absolutely phenomenal thing. They've placed a piece of their suspended entropy into your brain because you can receive that. That's what social animals are. That doesn't happen. That's a very rare thing to happen in the universe. That's what teaching and that's what education, that's what learning and teaching are. Two acts. I mean, I guess you could learn without being taught if you just learn your own lessons, I suppose. But like the explicit nature of education is gate kept. We gatekeep it based on all these merit restrictions, and especially with the cost, with the price, with the way we charge people money for their education, and only just usually it's like servicing these administrator heavy universities, and like the there shouldn't be a single dime ever spent on education. Spent by the person receiving the education. We should include, if we're going to have money in the world, or, you know, people should be paid well. Teaching as a profession is demonized, and for some reason, especially by the right, the railing against the teachers' unions, and it's such a madness thing that we're just constantly just like jamming down human potential. Like humans want to learn. Humans want to find things that resonate with who they are. They want to experience new things and reject things that don't feel comfortable. Like not everybody wants to learn, not wants to become, you know, a phlebotomist. Is that a word? I don't know. Not everybody's going to be interested in the same shit, obviously. But like the way that we make sure that the deity of money is ever present. And then with students especially, it's a form of labor control. It's a form of worker discipline meaning the bosses can discipline their labor force, their worker force, by charging for education. First, by telling teenagers, 16 and 17-year-olds, that you have to get a college degree in order to make anything of yourself. And then fast forward 50 or 60 years, and that person's in their 60s and they still owe 20 grand on their student loans that they've been paying off their entire. It's indentured servitude. I mean, there's all kinds of stories of people who are in their 50s and 60s and 70s and even beyond, I think, who are still paying off their student loans and who have cases where it's like, I took out $14,000 in loans. I've paid back $22,000 and now I owe $24,000. Like the way these things are administered, and it's just for nothing. Has the world gone bad since they've been paused because we paused them for the pandemic? So when they resume I think actually too, part of the student debt thing is the here, let's look at the fish here. Let's put the fish on screen. That's a fun one. Get on that one. Get up on that fish. Oh yeah. It's not zooming in anymore. The student debt thing is the fish distracted me. Shit. Part of the whole point of it whatever. Who cares? I'm not going to go back and listen to it. It's fine. I'm sure you can kind of tell what I was going to say anyway. Who gives a shit? All right, we got to move on. Hour and 29. All right, I think we can do this in under 2 hours. It'll be a miracle for me. So the submarine, Titan Sub CEO. I'm sure you've probably consumed your share. Everybody became sub design experts in about a span of a few days. I'm pretty proud of humanity for that, myself included. I love physics, as you can tell. Maybe I'm not sure if I can explain, if I can transmit my passion for it. I like it because to me it's kind of like mapping wizard spells in a sense. It's like there's a set of non-negotiables, and we function within them, and we use them. We understand physics and chemistry, which is basically hyper localized physics, basically biology, which is the overall cooperation between different types of chemistry. Everything comes back to physics and just the fundamental kind of rules that we observe. And we don't really, these aren't the rules that are there. They're the rules as we, a semi-intelligent species, have been able to describe to within degrees of accuracy. And the reasons we know that they're accurate is that we have a system for proving them wrong, and we also have a system for predicting what might happen. One of the greatest things a scientific concept can do is predict an outcome, and then that outcome is then eventually verified. Darwin predicted that there's this crazy flower that has this really long, windy sort of spiral nectar hole. Its nectar satchel is like a long, windy thing. And he predicted that there's some animal, a bird or something, that has it turned out to be a moth, but some animal. So finally someone filmed it. This moth flies up and it unrolls this long tongue, proboscis they're called, and it sticks it into it, and it drinks up some of that sweet, sweet nectar down at the middle of the spiral. He predicted that this thing would be there. Scientific, a lot of astronomy predictions and stuff like this. The gravitational wave thing, I think, was predicted too. The big ones, like the fact that the broad, big fat waves versus the high pitched ones. What the hell am I getting at? Oh, so I've been going on a rabbit hole this last week of pressure and how pressure works, and just kind of the things that were done wrong with this Titan sub. I think a lot of people are really fascinated by this topic. It taps into, of course, there's the obvious, like, look at the media attention, look at the government resources spent to save these people, and the media attention on the story, myself included. I'm not doing a story about the migrant boat that capsized or that sank and killed, hundreds of people died. So it's worth pointing out that, we're prioritizing our attention turns to this. I think it's defensible in the sense, because this is such a fascinating, I think there's just so many different angles to this. People, this is the first time it's ever happened. Not that there's a reason justifying ignoring the horror of drowning and being not being rescued, and all these migrant the risks that these migrant people, I'm hesitating to say migrant communities because I don't think that describes it accurately, but displaced people who are fleeing conditions, looking for something better, taking immense risks, and there's no media to tell their stories, and there's very little resources for them when they get there and to help them. So it is tragic. That said, I'm gonna not talk about them for the rest of this podcast. I guess I'm part of the problem. So there's that angle to it. There's the physics and the engineering angle to it. There's the capitalism angle to it, that this guy was actually. So one source, if you are interested, is check out Behind the Bastards podcast. It's a good show overall. I would give it a recommendation. But they did 2 episodes on Stockton Rush, the CEO. Turns out 2 of his ancestors were slave owners who signed the Declaration of Independence. So they were down there. They were around the founding fathers' orbit, and were part of the humanity's greatest people, the freedom-loving signers who also owned human beings. They were kidnappers. They were torturers. They were, violent murdering freaks. They were. When you say someone was a slave owner, that's a kid. You're talking about kidnapping. You're talking about kidnapping and severe sexual violence. Now, I can't say guaranteed in literally every single situation, but you are talking about violence. It's all violence. One thing I want to do, and this is not what I was going to get into in this podcast, but I imagine arguing with someone about, or at least starting this conversation with someone who might not agree. But do you agree that kidnapping somebody, being kidnapped, is a justifiable reason to kill your kidnapper? If you are kidnapped, if someone has you kidnapped, if I close my bathroom door while you're in there and I say, you can't leave, I've kidnapped you, you're allowed to kill me justifiably. That's okay. We all get that, right? Nobody agrees. Maybe you should ask once before you kill me from inside my bathroom. But escaping a kidnapping, we understand that intuitively, as if I have to commit violence to get out of my kidnapper's control, including killing them. That's totally justifiable. Might be emotionally difficult, but it's completely a justifiable act. And then I want to ask someone who is a big defender of the founding fathers, is you agree, you understand, 2/3 of them were slave owners. This guy Stockton Rush's great ancestors were, kidnappers or slave owners. That they all, if one of their slaves had killed them, that would have been a noble and righteous and justifiable act. And so our first president, Jefferson, our founding fathers, the people that we venerate in this not at all a patriarchy, where we worship the fathers. It's so silly. We're all doing something all the time that warranted their sudden violent death. Killing George Washington for kidnapping would have been fine. I mean, now politically and legally at that time, it would have been, they're part of the way that they controlled people was they would have killed your family. They had these systems of oppression and systems of abuse that were, not to mention just the physical violence and the chains. And I mean, they made sure, but it was justifiable. What the fuck am I getting into here? That's not what I was going to talk about. One of the hilarious parts of this Titan sub stuff, though, is the libertarian ethos at operating with this guy. So he actually had history in aerospace stuff. He flew some kind of planes or something. He got all these cushy. Oh yeah, that's right. That's one of the Behind the Bastards things. One of his first job flying planes was for the Saudi royal family or something he had some connection to oil companies in the Middle East, and he was flying planes around for them. I don't know all the details, but he has this sort of rich kid history. But he was trying to build out this business. The part of what the Titanic business, the taking people down to see the gravesite of a bunch of people who shoveled coal for a bunch of rich people who escaped on the boats. I don't know actually the class distinctions of the Titanic precisely, but just showing people the Titanic was just the start of this guy's plans. He wanted to sell submersible technologies to oil rigs and oil companies and energy companies, as well as like military and spy and CIA stuff. So he was looking to expand his market to the, you know, wherever someone at the bottom of the ocean could needed to be, which is either looking at shipwrecks, putting in infrastructure for energy extraction in order to kill the planet but make rich people money until we do, or spying and stuff like that. Maybe just laying cable, maybe just laying some sweet old cable, just not even in the sexually connotative version of that. So but he operated within an aerospace environment before, and then when he got into these deep ocean submersibles, it seems like he had ambitions to want to become kind of a Richard Branson type, which is a space that was already chewed up by Richard Branson and arguably Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. But those guys are just check writers, you know, who have blue origin, and they're able to use their manipulation of governments to get a lot of free subsidies and free stuff, and not to mention just the pollution that they produce and all the other shit. But the ocean floor, the ocean exploring is freaking not a joke. Okay, I know I'm disappointing you with some of you with that statement, but the physics at play here are beyond comprehension. Well, not really. We kind of comprehend them pretty well. This thing taught us a lot how it works. But this libertarian approach of like safety is just getting in the way, it's stifling innovation, having to prove that this stuff is safe is just going to slow us down, and this kind of like, there's a bit of a lot, like that's the thing about it. It's sort of nefarious because yeah, I guess there's a logic to that. There is like, yeah, okay. If you're, you know, it is a restriction. It is gumming up things, but it's also maybe going to keep people alive. Maybe it'll keep your head from becoming crab poop, right? And in fact, the ocean. So I've been watching a bunch of stuff about about James Cameron. There's this other guy too that's like a big ocean explorer guy. There's James Cameron dove down to the bottom of the Marianas Trench. He's no longer the deepest diver of all time. He was in 2014, I think, is when they made it down there. Those submersibles, there's been another one called the Limiting Factor is the name of the vessel, which is a strange name for a submarine, but it's just like sort of like kind of like a little cute sort of cubey box. The James Cameron one is this big green tolly. It's like upright. It's kind of like a fishing lure. It sort of looks like a big fishing weight that's vertical. The pressure part of it, although it's made from like this, it's made from like a foam, some sort of special engineered foam that resists compression. Obviously, it has to still be strong, but that's not structurally there to protect James Cameron. The actual part where these super deep ones go, and this is also true of the Limiting Factor as well, is just the sphere. They build these big balls, these huge spheres. By huge, I mean like big enough for James Cameron and a bottle of water and a bunch of buttons. The other one actually has a bigger pressure thing, because a sphere is the most efficient way to organize information, or as we call it, mass. Slow vibrations. Everything is just high pitched. I said slow, but everything is just vibrating at different frequencies. So the sphere is the best way to resist that. That's why planets are sphere shaped above a certain size. So the James Cameron vessel was just a ball sphere at the bottom, and then this big foam green thing that had all the motors and had tons of redundancies. They bring down a lot of weights with them to sink, and then they let those weights go. They're constantly just dropping lots of heavy weights at the bottom, which I kind of don't like that. But the ocean is just littered with shit, man. If you think about all the years, all the decades of oceans being dumping grounds for garbage, but all the boats sinking, all the container ships going down, all the amazing, like the Mediterranean floor, the Mediterranean Sea, all the ships across antiquity. It must be just amazing, depending on how fast it gets eaten away by the salt water, I guess. So like, yeah, it's not like the Titanic's the only piece of clutter at the bottom, I guess is what I mean. And then because it's buoyant, it just like launches itself back up. Of course, there's like, you know, specific ways of doing that safely. And then so the limiting factor is also a big spherical ball where the people sit. And then it's got like this kind of structure around it that's, you know, highly engineered and has all the machines and the lights and the cameras and the grabby arm and because they're trying to pick up stuff and gather up samples and pick up Snickers wrappers and stuff. They found garbage at the bottom of the Mariana Trench too. Unlike the submersible that blew up or that imploded, it wasn't a sphere. It was a cylinder with spherical ends and then a bunch of crap attached to one side. So, and he used a material that is very strong, but not for this. It didn't work. So one of the main criticisms of this design was that the guy used this carbon fiber hull, which he had just in his, you know, just decided it was strong enough because it takes a beating and it accumulates stress. Things like everything has an operating life cycle. Some things are designed to be used once and they know that it's not safe after that. Some things are designed to be used up to 20 times or several hundred, like your bed, 6,000 times. After 6,001, it explodes in a puff of smoke and feathers and you screaming. The last thing you'll see is your hair on fire because you used your bed too much. What am I saying? No, but like things wear out. And so carbon fiber wears out at the forces at the bottom of the ocean at 3,800 meters down pretty quickly, it turns out. So it was a ticking time bomb, this thing, it seems. They've recovered a bunch of parts, possibly even some human remains. So, you know, I imagine there'll be some kind of more information about that eventually. But also the carbon fiber, when it breaks, it like shatters. It like kind of like, it doesn't just sort of deform. It just, I don't know if it turns into sand or something like that, but it breaks kind of catastrophically. So it was a terrible choice. It's apparently a good material for external pressure, like building like a oxygen tank or something that's going to hold something in, but in being pressured from the outside the way it was very much not a way you're supposed to use it, I guess. And this is a pretty good, at least that's been confirmed by this. What the hell am I even getting at? So he was getting into this, and I just wanted to read this one quote. This is Stockton Rush resting in the bottom of the ocean floor in a million little pieces, saying, "We have heard the baseless cries of, 'You are going to kill someone' way too often," he wrote. "I take this as a serious personal insult. People say all the time, 'You're going to kill somebody.' We hear that all the time." Well, maybe they should look into it. Maybe there's a reason for that. I mean, if I'm walking down the street and someone tells me that, I'm probably going to wonder what I might be doing at the moment. I might not realize, but I also would probably be like, oh, that's only one data point. But if a whole bunch of people over time were like, "You're going to kill somebody with that," I'd have been like, well, then I'm going to put down my scimitar laced with tree frogs. Maybe I shouldn't be carrying around my scimitar covered in tree frogs. Scimitars just seem like a very particularly unwieldy sword. Kind of top heavy. I've been playing Dark Souls a little bit. Not really. Not lately. Years ago. So he kept hearing that they're going to kill people. Let's get into this pressure stuff a little bit, though. I just wanted to share this video. This is you've probably seen some stuff like this recently. There's been the shot of the rail train car go thunk suddenly because of a steam differential, the air pressure inside. If you make something really hot with steam, this is what they do with these 55-gallon drums we're about to watch. Actually, I'll just hit play. So this is a YouTube video. Atmospheric pressure crushes a 55-gallon steel drum. There's a young lady. She must be a student. I'm guessing that's the teacher guy, the bald dude manning the flame thing. They're standing outside. A bunch of kids are in the back too, kind of doing a good job being attendant. And whenever you're doing stuff with fire and steam, usually that's a little bit more interesting than your dumb old boring teacher and his chalkboard. So this girl's explaining stuff.
And pressure inside of the can is going to be less than the pressure from the outside.
Pressures inside is less than the pressure outside. 9.4 million views. This is 13 years ago. So what? Now she's closing it. She's
Tight. Twist. Twist.
twist it. Twist the hot can. It's a funny video.
That's fine.
So they got the cap on. Now there's steam inside this thing.
Ease.
And they're going to pick it up with 2 sticks, which doesn't seem like the best way to do this. But
It sure is.
now they're moving the steel thing, which they've just been boiling water in, and they've sealed it up now. I would actually just expect the cap to come flying off, but they've moved it into a pool of water, like a little plastic kiddie pool. I think there's ice in there too, because at one point they like try to get the girl, or she starts putting ice on top of it, but she's like being kind of adorably like scared. I mean, you're dealing with some major shit right now in this video. Like I totally relate to like being hesitant.
No.
So now we're just waiting.
Throw some water on it. Yeah. Oh no, just grab the ice, Yoon, and with your hands.
So put the ice on. So look at her. She's being scared. Kind of funny. She's tossing ice on top.
That is so wimpy.
And then
Do it. Yeah.
It's getting pretty big.
okay, he's putting water, spraying it with a hose. It's great. It's insane. That's one atmospheric pressure. That's surface level. That's all of the pressure, all of the weight of all the air above you. And watching the kids in the back too, you can only see their legs the way the shot is right now, but it's really funny the way that they all just, everybody just goes boom. Here, one more time. Guys spraying water. It's so sudden. It's so sudden. It's amazing. You hear a little like, you tell it's kind of like going like a little bit of a creak, and then it just slams itself closed. Completely destroys that thing. So what happens is the steam inside is enough to resist the pressure. Before you put the cap on, the pressure is equalized. After you put the cap on, the steam is pushing out, and the steam is creating it's filling all the steam is highly activated molecules of H2O. There's a lot of energy in them because they've added it via heat. They've transferred some of that entropic difference, so they've increased the level of like measurable difference, basically. So it's hot, it's more agitated, and as you cool it with the ice, the bucket, the kiddie pool with ice cubes, and then spraying it with water, now the temperature starts coming down, and steam is going to then start to cool and reach its condensation point, at which point it converts from a gas into a liquid, which itself releases a little bit of energy. That's why evaporation works, to cool you off. But what happens inside the sealed thing is that all of a sudden the pressure inside goes from like a steam pressure to the steam becomes liquid, and now it is empty, basically. I don't know. I'm sure that it's measurable, but suddenly there's an immense differential that was not there because the steam converted into water, into condensation. And the strength of the outside pressure now just completely takes over. And just in an instant, it just shrivels up this little can, this 55-gallon drum, into a mangled pile of 55-gallon drum metal. It's so powerful. And that's one. That's everywhere you are at every time. Your body is pushing against the pressure because you evolved in this layer. We can tolerate a little bit of a differences in pressure, but it's fucking crazy. And so pressure, it's a little bit tricky to get your head around. It's not the same as gravity, but it's caused by gravity. It's because it's the consequence of the Earth displacing, the concentration of mass, of which we call the Earth, pulling, distorting space in a uniform sort of sphere. It fluctuates a little bit based on where mass is. It's like there's always like little nuances around the edges, but all this distorted space causes mass to gather around this point in space, which then forms a planet, and then attracts different levels, different layers of materials. If you think of different materials as being an environment, like if you're 6 miles underground under a mountain and you're in solid granite, you're not going to survive that as a consciousness. It doesn't work. But you're still if you're just inside a granite chunk, you're inside a pressure. You're inside something that has a pressure, and you're in an environment. And then you go deeper, you get to the molten part of the Earth's core. Sorry, the phase between the mantle, into the mantle, and then into the molten regions, and then the solid iron ball core. And there's some nuances to that as well. It's amazing. What the fuck am I trying to say? Oh, so this ball attracts. It's not that. It's actually different. The way that we understand gravity is a little confusing. But the ocean sticks to the orb, to the sphere. The gas above the ocean, our atmosphere, is just stuck to it because it's just pulled towards the thing, and there's an immense amount of weight, even though air is invisible. It's amazing that it's invisible. You ever just look around and be like, wow, I can't see it at all. Like you can see smoke because you're seeing particles of something else. You can see pollution because you're seeing particles of something else. But the air, this incredibly important and thing that we can't see, that we should protect it. It's obviously critical for our but it piles up. So it's this huge pile. And the reason it works in one of the things that's kind of confusing about pressure is that you think it only works because it's being pulled downward by gravity. It's not that. The reason it goes in all directions is because while the originating kind of force is the fact that everything is being pulled towards the center of the Earth, the pressure works in all directions, including up and down and side. It's uniform in all directions because that attempted displacement is shoving molecules in all directions, no matter where it is, because of the weight of the entire region around you of pressure. So when you go into the ocean, it only takes 33 feet to reach, or water. Water is 8 pounds a gallon. So it only takes 33 feet of depth to reach another atmospheric pressure unit. So when you start counting 33, so 100 feet of ocean is over 3 atmospheric pressures. The Titanic submersible was down at like 13,000. It was like something close to 400 atmospheric pressures. And one way to think about it that I was trying to get my head around is lightning. Pressure. I need to look this up actually, so you feel free to correct me if you want to. But what causes thunder when lightning, which is a discharge of electricity from one positively charged side of a cloud to a negatively charged side of the cloud, or to the ground, which has a charge differential, which causes these gigantic sparks to, activate. And superheat the air around it, so that lightning displaces us. I don't know how thick lightning is actually, but it displaces a column of air around it. It activates the heat, and so it immediately changes pressure really, really, really fast and really strong. And so I think either the lightning or the thunder comes from the push out, and then now you've created a big wave, a sudden. So now the sound wave is traveling, but also I think it's both. When the lightning goes away, the electricity part of it collapses back. So it gets like this air sitting there minding its own business. It gets sheared open by the sudden presence of electricity, this charge. It gets pushed open really fast and then closed really fast. So it's just like your hands clapping it's like. So it opens up, it causes thunder, and then it closes really fast, which adds to the thunder. I think it's both. Either way, it's a consequence of the pressure of the air around it. It's a consequence of pressure differential. We use pressure to fly planes. I actually had a job briefly teaching science stuff to kids. It was this company. I don't want to say the name of the company, but it was like they sent out people who they hired based on personality. I mean, I come across pretty well with people when I try, doing stand-up comedy. I'm fairly comfortable in these kinds of things. So I think it was a decent decision to hire me. The rate that they advertised was way fucking higher. The pay rate was way higher than what it turned out to be, because I actually completely hated it. But they teach you these like modules, and you go to like schools and you do presentations on science concepts, kind of like you're like a fun science teacher. I think I kind of could have seen myself getting into it if I'd gotten past the initial shock of how little paid it was and how kind of much I hated doing it. So I went out and I did one. It was I shadowed a little bit, and I did one with some, and the module that I learned was about pressure. We learned about the Bernoulli effect, which is the what causes lift in an airplane, which is the reason that works is because you have the air that travels on top of the wing travels further than the air that travels below the wing. That's why the wing is sort of curved a little bit, and because the air on top travels further than the air at the bottom, even though they're going at the same speed, it creates a pressure differential that trends towards lift. And so that's what causes a wing to create lift. The force that lifts up the airplane is pressure, because the air, you're splitting the air into two different streams that have different pressures. There you go. And it flies planes, and it's pretty cool. And I mean, that's how wings function. It's pretty neat. I hated that. I hated doing that job. I I hated it so much. I did it like once, and it was I quit. I went and I quit like the very next day. It was horrible for very little money. It was like I was getting like $13 an hour or something. It was awful. What the fuck am I trying to say? Oh, so the lightning comes from pressure. Then it closes, right? Basically, the reason I'm trying to get your head around that, I hope this is good podcasting, I have no idea, is that what the sub is, and what those deep sea ones, the limiting factor in James Cameron's big green fishing lure, the exact same thing applies to those, but those were safely engineered. Those were properly engineered. That's what I was saying earlier too. That entire industry has never had this kind of disaster, because these guys who do these deep sea ocean stuff, but they've been doing shit since before the 60s. But there's this one vessel that traveled down in the 60s that was like so there's like, this is a fairly mature field, really. You're basically bringing your environment down to the bottom. And when you seal in 5 people in a tube, you're locking in surface pressure, which is what we need, which is what our bodies are acclimated for. We can like, deep sea divers can go down, swim down. You've seen those weirdos who like sink a big rope and then like just drop down next to the rope, and they have the huge fins, and they do insane stuff. I saw a thing about their lungs. Like their lungs compress to the point they get down like 300 meters maybe, or feet. I don't know, whatever it is. It's like nutty stuff. Their lungs are like like 10% of their original size or something like that. So like they factor that into the way that they do those super deep like free diving. Another type. This was not someone on, I think, James Cameron's crew of his gang of dudes that like help him with his stuff, does this trick with styrofoam cups where he draws a picture on it and like kind of writes like a little note, and he does like a pack of them, like 10 or something, and he puts it in a baggie, some kind of baggie on the side of the thing, and after it goes down, it comes back up. Each little styrofoam cup, which is just a regular kind of coffee size, is now like a little cute little shot glass or smaller. Because and the drawing is still intact. It looks fine, and they're kind of cute. They're kind of neat little mementos this guy makes for like their customers or whatever. What you're doing is, though, you're locking yourself into a surface pressure, and then you're challenging the Earth by going down into these other pressures and crossing through these thresholds. Every 33 feet, it's another atmosphere. Every 33 feet, it's more. And so they're 370 atmospheres down. Essentially what that is, when there's a crack, it's not gravity. I don't want to be confusing about that, but it's like when we do stuff with physics, when we manipulate chemistry to create combustion or other ways of converting some kind of chemical reaction into mechanical energy to spin stuff. Almost every machine is just a way of spinning something in a way we want. It's like a car, obviously. And then we take that spinning and we can convert it into gears and convert it into different, it's an incredibly amazing thing humans do. We're just playing with like the very little edges of physics. When you fuck with pressure though, at this level, you are visiting, like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like you're going past the Balrog. It's not even, it is on the order of like I don't even know how to, what framework I'm even trying to get at, but it is like deeper than, it's not a competition, but it is, if you're making a movie about it, it would be like 1,000 Balrogs. That makes no sense. It's like I don't know the word. I can only make a noise. It's this noise. That's the noise in the movie of it. Is, you know, that shot of the sun and you just want to make someone feel something ominous, like you're Werner Herzog. It's just, it's like the deep rooted core. So for the briefest of moments, when what they basically did was freeze a lightning bolt, because they took surface pressure and they exposed it to 400 atmospheric pressures or whatever the number was. So they created that suspension. So it's almost as if, say, the lightning struck, it opened up the vacuum, and then they didn't let the vacuum close. So it's like if you could press pause on lightning right after the lightning disappears, it wants to break. So that's why the spheres resist the pressure. The one James Cameron was in, and these other, like, those things are the same thing. We've got this little bubble that has to be incredibly strong, or the takes over and just basically destroys everything all at once. It pushes in, but also as soon as the pressure is released, and I don't know if this is the case, that when you crack that protective sleeve, when you unpause the lightning bolt, basically, now it's far stronger, 400x, probably some kind of other multiplier. But you hit the unpause button because you didn't engineer your vessel to hold up against it. And I don't know if this is true, but it might be that, just like the little coffee cup, right, that was exposed, because it actually goes down gradually, right? It's not just suddenly exposed. So it probably would rip it apart if it was suddenly exposed. I wonder, because I really want to learn about the physics of implosion. Is it like every cell in the body basically goes through what that coffee cup did? Does your body just kind of go like it just like rips itself apart in a millisecond? It is faster. Like, one thing I kept seeing is like it's way faster than the brain can perceive. Like we can perceive things in like 100 milliseconds, or like pretty fast, but nothing. I don't know what the numbers are, but like this shit all happens in like 1 millisecond. It's like less than 1 millisecond. It's so fast. So it's actually a pretty good way to die. I would take it. I think if I knew that going in, it'd probably be pretty scary. That's how I was going to die. But just being surprised, there's no surprise. Just one moment, maybe like this tin thing, like this can here. There's like, what's that noise? And then there's nothing. Then it's just, so it's over. But it's also not uniformly applied, and there's also a ton of other factors that immediately go into play, like the coldness of the ocean too. And so like the other parts getting in the way of this explosion. It's nothing. Things in the real world are usually not as precise as they are in a clean computer simulation or something like that, or you have to model all those other factors. So it's plausible that there might have been some human remains in the forms of, you know, a piece here and there, if it wasn't because the sudden implosion wouldn't have been necessarily uniformly applied to every single part inside. But the concept that it's like pausing a lightning bolt, basically, and now you've got this pressure thing ready to blow, and then suddenly it releases, and it's just like this can here, except it's 400 atmospheres. I know I keep saying the same thing, but yeah. That's rough, man. That's some, because obviously the other stuff, the hull itself is going to break and collide with the people and also collide with what's inside. But by the time the hull materials are moving inwards, it's moving inwards from every direction. But I don't even know if by that point the people's bodies are even articulated anymore, or are non, like, I think they're completely articulated into bits by that point. But it happens within like less than a minute. So and also I've seen stuff, and I think this has been debunked, or I'm not sure what the science is, but that the speed of all that raises the temperature to like the surface of the sun. I saw people leaving comments about that. That seems a little bit. By the way, the surface of the sun, like there's parts of the Earth that, like, the surface of the sun's not as hot as you think. It's really hot. It's much hotter in the core of the sun. The corona outside the surface of the sun is actually hotter than the inside of the surface, like right on the surface. And there really is no surface. It's these gigantic boiling cells. Basically, it's like huge globs of corn that reach down and deep into the sun that are convecting. They're shifting up and down. The sort of hydrogen shell on the outside of the sun. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to wrap my head around what that must be. Not for the humans to experience it. The alternative story where they lose contact and they can't get up and they have to slowly die of starvation, or not starvation, of suffocate, slowly run out of oxygen. That's far more horrifying than a catastrophic break. That's like where the human stuff really comes into play. The sound for that, like, so we've got this sound. We've got. The sound for that would be human noises. Like Event Horizon. You've seen Event Horizon, where they have that weird blood orgy and they get all crazy and violent and stuff. It's so horrifying to think about that version of the story. The suffocation narrative. But yeah, man, it's fucking crazy. It's just nuts. I hope I've explained that. I don't know. Let's watch this can blow up one more time. I don't think I did it. I feel like I could have. Yeah, I really want some kind of science and some sort of study. And I think there probably will be something, but like just hearing, it happened so fast, that's not satisfying to me. Like, I want to know stage after step after step after step, because it was even though we're talking about the very fastest thing, kind of, there is a sequence of events that unfolds in that moment, and a lot of stuff happening simultaneously too. But what does even the concept of simultaneity even mean? But it's every bit. It's way more powerful than like an explosion. It's not our brains can kind of conceptualize an outward explosion, aside from the fact that we see movies and we know what war weapons do. We see explosions our whole lives. But you could just slap a puddle of water. We've all jumped in a little puddle of water, or you see, drop a glass on the ground and it goes out in all different directions. It explodes. It's not that hard, but the understanding implosion is weird. It's not just a small crumple. It's like the physics of the pressure force this thing, and then there's the blowback. So it's going to push a whole bunch of shit out afterwards. So anyway, we should be dropping shit down to the bottom of the ocean and watching it blow up. That would be the fucking tourist business I would start. Come down with me. All right. I'll yell about my beard falling out a little bit on the way down. Talk about socialism. Talk about how much your boss sucks. Then when we get down to the bottom, we've already lowered the fireworks show. We've already dropped down a couple of poorly designed things that are going to blow up when we tell it to. I'll even let you push the button, and we get to watch cool explosions. And then like just bubbles go up and debris rains around, and yeah. But yeah, that's kind of what I settled on this past week, as I've been thinking about it a good bit. It's just like, what it's a little like pausing lightning and then just waiting for the deep, like, I don't know. Like the relentlessness of physics. There's no like hesitation. There's only correction. It's like this was a case where we hubristically challenged Earth to prove itself, challenged the universe. By we, I mean a human in the kind of generic, a human person, Stockton Rush. Dangerous ideology of being against safety So crazy. And obviously lost the challenge, but like the notion of being that deep in the ocean and having the ocean, the weight of all that water, it's not just the water straight above you. It's all the water around that's pushing all the water everywhere because it's all interconnected in terms of pressure equalizing. The equalization of pressure is why things sit stable. So you introduce an unstable element into a system that was minding its own business. Not that there's any intention to it or anything, but it's so deep. It's so much more deeper than any god. It's rooted in that, like, the core. I feel like Joe Rogan would get his brain melted by this kind of conversation if I could get him on my show, as if that's my goal. I'd actually meet Joe Rogan once at the Young Turks. Yeah, that was, yeah, I shook his hand. He's short. I mean, I'm over 6 feet, not bragging or anything, but yeah. Anyway, okay, we'll watch this blow up one more time. I'm just starting to say the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. Oh, Mr. Abrams, do it. I think it's getting
Water on the can. Boom. It's such a perfect response. I love the screams immediately followed by, yeah. Nice. So yeah, this is a science experiment that I predict will be making a comeback in science classrooms. Well, hopefully outside the school. Probably don't do that indoors, I would bet. So yeah, good stuff. All right. Well, listen, I actually have a couple more things to do about this guy, but I don't want to. I've already gone way too much, so maybe we'll save those for later. Charlie Kirk talking about the woke guys and the CEO with his not hiring 50-year-old white guys. There was a whole comment about that. So of course it's stupid, and my response to it will be perfect. So what we do here, just the rumble, just that deep rumble of just elementary physics, just like the so much fucking power. You don't get to see it. We live it all the time. Our bodies are built for it. We are that. The amount of energy that is contained in your body between your cells that are holding your atoms together is like, if you could unleash your full energetic potential, you could destroy cities. I don't know. But like the amount of energy just in your own fucking little finger is huge. And so like just all this stuff, and this gave us I'm not saying I'm glad it happened. It sucks that people died. But it gave us a window into that. It gave us a little glimpse at what it's like. The longest we could have held it open was less than a millisecond. In order to like create that differential, and man, not a place where biology can sustain very long. So, all right, well, I'm regressing back to talking. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. If you're on Patreon, thanks for your support. Thanks for being patient with my. I'm gonna get, once I get this other project kind of out of the way, I'll have a lot more capacity for putting shit out and getting things going with a little bit more regularity. I'm kind of burning the candle on both ends. Things are a little bit rough right now, so please hang with me if it's bothering. Otherwise, hope you're doing well. Happy 4th of July. Enjoy a hot dog, enjoy a brat, enjoy a burger, enjoy a vegan piece of broccoli if you're of that kind. Dip it in something healthy, and keep your ears. I hate fucking my noise sensitivities are. I do not like the 4th. It's really hard on my fucking brain. So good night. Goodbye. I should probably do some other recording and stuff, but gonna go pet the cat, drink some water, and keep going. Keep moving on. I hope you're doing the same. All right, then. Okay, bye.